Illinois Governor JB Pritzker is demanding that the Department of Homeland Security leave Chicago just a day after terrorists ambushed officers on a routine patrol. What's up over at culturecrusader.substack.com. You can find the link in the description below. So Illinois Governor JB Pritzker has demanded that the Department of Homeland Security leave the city of Chicago after terrorists ambushed officers during a routine patrol in the Broadview area, which is kind of where that ICE facility has been located, where we've seen a number of riots take place over the last couple of weeks. On Saturday morning, Tricia McLaughlin, the Assistant Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, reported on the ambush on X. She said this morning during routine patrolling in Broadview in the same area of Chicago that law enforcement were assaulted yesterday. Our brave law enforcement officers were rammed by vehicles and boxed in by 10 cars. Agents were unable to move their vehicles and exited the car. One of the drivers who ran the law enforcement vehicle was armed with a semi-automatic weapon. Law enforcement was forced to deploy their weapons and fire defensive shots at an armed U.S. citizen who drove herself to the hospital to get care for wounds. The armed woman was named in a CBP intelligence bulletin last week for doxing agents and posting online, "Hey to all my gang, let's F those mother effers up. Don't let them take anyone." Thankfully, no law enforcement were seriously injured in this attack. Finally, she concluded saying, "Pritzker Chicago Police Department is leaving the shooting scene and refuses to assist us in securing the area. There is a growing crowd, and we are deploying special operations to control the scene. This is an evolving situation, and we will give more information as soon as it becomes available." Later on Sunday afternoon, a report from Fox News' Bill Malugin said this: multiple law enforcement sources confirmed to Fox News that Chicago police officers were instructed by their chief of patrol to not respond to Border Patrol agents' call for help yesterday after they were reportedly surrounded by a large crowd of protesters following a ramming incident and shooting of an armed woman. Chicago PD CAD screenshot below, which you can see right there. So before that was shared, Pritzker appeared on CNN the morning of October 5th and demanded the Department of Homeland Security leave Chicago. He said this: "Instead of going after the bad guys, they're just picking up people who are brown and black and then checking their credentials. Are you a U.S. citizen?" So you can imagine people are getting detained, they're getting arrested, U.S. citizens, and they did this, of course, when they raided a building in the middle of the night in South Shore. 130 people, they were emptied out of this building. They were going after a few gang members, and instead they broke windows, they broke down doors, they ransacked the place, and there were people that were held. I mean, elderly people and children zip-tied. I mean, elderly people held for 3 hours at a time. They are the ones that are making it a war zone. They need to get out of Chicago. If they're not going to focus on the worst of the worst, which the president said they were going to do, they need to get the heck out. Anyone who has their mind on right can instantly see that this guy is a giant liar, because he originally claimed they were just arresting brown and black people and picking them up off the street. But then he admitted they were indeed targeting gang members in the one example he attempted to provide to prove his point. So why should we believe anything else this guy is saying if he can't even get his story straight in a 1-minute clip on CNN? Nevertheless, McLaughlin responded to Pritzker's comments, writing on X, "Our message to JB Pritzker: get out of your mansion and go see Chicago." A day after DHS law enforcement was attacked by domestic terrorists in Chicago, Pritzker goes on CNN to serve up a smorgasbord of lies. If JB Pritzker actually walked his own city, he would see the domestic terrorists attacking American law enforcement officers and the scourge of insidious violent crime that is a direct result of his own policies. ICE and CBP law enforcement officers exercise reasonable suspicion as protected by the Fourth Amendment under the U.S. Constitution. JB's jeers and smears of racial profiling are repugnant. Last week, federal law enforcement conducted a targeted operation at a Chicago apartment building that resulted in the arrest of multiple terrorists, Tren de Aragua gang members, and violent criminals. Why is the sitting governor so unconcerned with terrorists living among innocents in his city? Children were never zip-tied. This is a shameful and disgusting lie. President of the United States, Trump, and Secretary Noem will not let children be exploited and trafficked by gangs and criminals like the past administration. News Nation, who accompanied law enforcement officers on that raid in that South Shore apartment complex, reported that at least 30 individuals were arrested as part of the raid. So Pritzker appears to have been infected with a false compassion. This is something that is a massive, massive problem in our country. Bishop Sheen defined it as this: false compassion is a pity that is shown not to the mugged, but to the mugger, not to the family of the murdered, but to the murderer, not to the woman who was raped, but to the rapist, not to the poor girl who's given a shot of dope, but to the rich boy who happens to come from a fine family. There are some judges, some in some of our courts. There are some social workers. We can even now say there are some governors, some politicians. Not all. There are sob sisters. There are the social slobberers who insist on compassion being shown to the muggers, to the dope fiends, to the throat slashers, to the beatniks, to the prostitutes, to the homosexuals, to the punks, so that today the decent man is practically off the reservation. This is a false compassion, and that is exactly what JB Pritzker here is trying to gin up. He is having compassion for these gang members, these terrorists, and instead is trying to villainize. And on the opposite side, he's villainizing law enforcement officers who are trying to clean up the streets of Chicago, trying to make the city a safe place for the common good and for the citizens of Chicago. False compassion. In fact, we also have St. Paul telling us this. We know that the law is good, provided that one uses it as law, with the understanding that law is meant not for a righteous person, but for the lawless and unruly, the godless and sinful, the unholy and profane, those who kill their fathers or mothers, murderers, the unchaste, sodomites, kidnappers, liars, perjurers, and whatever else is opposed to sound teaching according to the glorious gospel of the blessed God with which I have been entrusted. So officers doing their job is just and right, and cleaning up the rampant crime protects the righteous of the city and promotes the common good. Everything that JB Pritzker is clearly opposed to. So that begs the question, why is this guy even the governor of Illinois? He's clearly not fit for the job based on these comments alone. And maybe it's time he should be removed. We can no longer tolerate these corrupt, wicked politicians who are putting people's lives in danger and are instead supporting criminals instead of their own righteous citizens who are law-abiding. Enough is enough.
Why would you be afraid of the people? Why are you not afraid of God instead of man?